Plenty of calls about this stabbing that happened at Yamanto and the new laws that have been brought in by the LNP. And I'll get to those in a few minutes. But the stabbing of this Coles employee at Yamanto at the hands of this 13-year-old boy has shocked Queenslanders. There's no doubt about that. It's less than a year on from the death of Eileen White, not far down the road at Redbank Plains, but also a first test for this new state government's crackdown on crime. Many critics have said that they failed the test, with attempted murder not falling under this new adult crime law. Joining me on the line is Dr Terry Goldsworthy, a criminologist at Bond University. Terry, thank you for your time this morning. We do appreciate it, and I know it's tricky ground that we're going to go over here, but let's have a chat about it. Is attempted murder being missing from these new laws an oversight, do you think?
Well, I do think it's, in some respect, a huge blunder by the government. I mean, this was a signature policy put forward and promoted very strongly. If you look at the type of offences that they included, things like grievous bodily harm, wounding, acts intended to cause grievous bodily harm, murder and, unlawful killing, manslaughter. I mean, attempted murder is the same kind of offence. And attempted murder, you're liable to life imprisonment, so it's just as serious. So the fact that it wasn't included is a serious oversight. I think that we will see some amendments go in very quickly to include it in these offences. But, having said that, I don't know how they prepared the list of offences for the bill. I mean, if you look at the Queensland Sentencing Counter Data Hub, it tells us that no youth offender has been charged or sentenced, I should say, for attempted murder since 2015. So did they look at that and go, oh, well, it doesn't actually occur, so let's not include it? But, of course, the danger of doing that is that you have events that occur like this week where it will happen, and you will see police charging someone with that particular offence.
The Premier has very quickly flagged that more changes are going to be made to this Youth Justice Act. Will manslaughter being added to the list of adult crimes be part of that, do you think?
Well, manslaughter is already on there. It's included in that list of offences that are removed from, having a youth offender sentence as a child. So I think you'll see them going back over the offences and seeing what other offences could potentially raise their head at some stage. And look, this is the problem, I guess, when you take a select group of offences and apply a different set of sentencing circumstances to them. There may always be an argument to include others, and certainly this would be a case where that would be reasonable. But, I think there are some other loopholes in that legislation. For instance, the courts can still make an order under Section 220 of the Youth Justice Act for a conditional release order. Now, a conditional release order means that the youth offender can get sentenced, but then is immediate release back into the community. So they never actually go to jail as such. And, they are quite popular with judges. If you look at robberies, for instance, over the last 5 years, we've had about 13 youth offenders sentenced for robbery. 700 got probation, 189 got detention, 145 got conditional release orders, so they never spent a day in detention.
Wow.
I think that's a loophole. The other big loophole is that they've amended Section 227 of the Youth Justice Act, where a judge sets the percentage of the sentence they must serve. Prior to this, it was set at 70% or 50% in exceptional circumstances. The LNP have actually removed any requirement in terms of setting a percentage. It's now totally up to the discretion of the judge. So my expectation is that the judges won't increase the requirement of time to be served. They will decrease the percentage to be served.
Many critics have said that if the LNP's adult crime policy worked as a deterrent, then this attack would never have happened. Is that how you see it?
Oh, look, I mean, many offenders, including adults, don't ideate about punishments before they go and commit the offence. This is obviously an intentional act, but how well planned it was is another question. And I mean, we can see that by the fact the weapon was stolen from the same store where allegedly the act took place. So, many offenders, it's not just, youth offenders, many adult offenders don't sit there and do a cost-benefit analysis as to will the crime be worth the time. I mean, I don't think that's probably a realistic approach. I mean, what this will do is once they commit the offence, they will realise that there's ramifications. And we do know that, incarceration reduces offending. Not necessarily recidivism, but it does reduce the offending levels in the community. So that's irrefutable. So I guess in some expectations are that, if you get these serious repeat offenders, which is the type of offender we're talking about, they will be removed from the community and their offending should then decrease and the community should be safer, I guess would be the overall plan of this legislation.
We're getting plenty of texts, as you would imagine, over this. This from Ross. He says, I'd suggest that if you asked any of the Bali 7 if they'd commit another crime, being jailed in a terrible situation and conditions in Bali, I'm sure they'd say a big fat no. I think our jails are too cosy and gives them privilege instead of the victims. That from Ross in Mossman.
Well,
yeah.
You know, I mean, jail is a deterrent. It's a general deterrent to the community, and it's a specific deterrent to the offender. And I guess that works that once they've gone into detention, they've seen it's unpleasant, and it's meant to be unpleasant. It's a punishment. They won't want to go back there.
The general tone from our audience, and I think you're hearing this from a lot of places, this from Randy, at least if they're locked up, they can't commit any more crimes. I mean, that's how I think most people, they're not seeing jail as a deterrent. They're looking at, society being protected.
Yeah, well, that's right. I mean, that's what I was alluding to before, that if people are incarcerated, the crime will go down because they're simply not available to commit it. They're incapacitated. I guess the flip side of that is what happens when they get out, which they inevitably will get out. And that's where rehabilitation comes into play. And, I guess the LNP has flagged that they want to ensure there is some form of rehabilitation. But certainly where you have pre-crime, where particularly youth offenders, you need to address the causal factors of their offending, be it drug use, DV in the house, lack of engagement at school. When they're committing the crime, community safety is paramount, and that's where you have strong bail laws, and that's where, you have these laws that will, purport to, give adult time for adult crimes. And then post-crime is where your rehabilitation needs to kick in so that these people don't keep becoming recidivist offenders.
Sure.
But, I guess in relation to the adult time, adult crime, I've been on record saying this a number of times in opinion pieces, etc. I don't think it's going to make any substantial difference to sentencing by judges, except for offences such as murder. 6% of youth offenders got a detention sentence in the last annual Children's Court report. Judges still have that discretion, even though there's a higher sentence available, a higher maximum. I don't think it's going to make an ounce of difference in terms of their sentencing regimes or their sentencing trends. They will sentence as they see fit because they have that discretion.
Yeah, all right. Look, I appreciate your time this morning, Professor. Thank you very much for that update. Dr Terry Goldsworthy, criminologist at Bond University, with the very latest and his perceptions on what's going on. David Crisafulli has said, of course, that these laws will evolve, and we'll keep a close eye on that, obviously. 7:23